Local jurors in a staged car crash trial heard from a witness today, serving prison time related to another witness's alleged murder.
Tan Trung reports he testified about the money and people involved in the crashes.
Personal injury attorneys Vanessa Mota, Jason Giles, their law firms, and alleged co-conspirator Dominique Stolbert faced multiple fraud-related charges. Prosecutors accused them of taking part in schemes involving staged 18-wheeler accidents and bogus lawsuits. Testifying for the prosecution Monday morning, Ryan Harris told the court he began intentionally crashing cars into 18-wheelers around 2017 and was introduced to the scam by Cornelius Garrison. Harris said early on, Vanessa Mota represented him, and he also had dealings with the King law firm, where Jason Giles worked. Harris testified he eventually went on his own, staging car-on-car crashes, recruiting other drivers to do the same, and directing their claims to Mota. Harris said he had a conversation with Mota when he made that decision. Quote, "I just let her know in advance, and that I'll be back. And she said, make sure to hit them right, and the policy is high." In 2020, Cornelius Garrison was gunned down in Gentilly. Garrison had been cooperating with federal investigators in their probe in staged wrecks. Harris says he kept bringing cases to Mota until 2023 and received kickback checks from her fiancé at the time, Chanel Fordish. In early 2025, Harris pled guilty for aiding and abetting in the murder of Cornelius Garrison and agreed to testify against the defendants in this trial. At federal court, Tan Trung, Fox 8, Local First.
Later in the afternoon, the prosecution played some recorded conversations between alleged slammers and Vanessa Mota. In one conversation, Mota told a slammer, quote, "I'm trying to protect you," when discussing involvement by the FBI and U.S. Marshals.